My name is Farrah. I'm the Ecosystems Director at Stackery, and I just want to thank all of you, first off, for inviting me here to come talk to you about how I've leveled up with Serverless. Can you hear that? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Serverless is, of course, like a technological goal for vendors to deliver hosting and computer power to their customers without having to deal with patching, understanding old technology, and having all their time being sucked up by that. It's a mindset. This talk is not going to be a how-to. There's a lot of smart people in this room that are like Lego. You heard Sheen walk you through how they've set up their infrastructure. This talk is going to be more of a, I hope that I can inspire you. My introduction to technology was not like many I hear. My dad was not an early adopter. We didn't have a computer in the home. In fact, it wasn't until I had graduated high school and I was working at my stepdad's company called Technology Solutions Network that I really had a chance to get my hands on the internet. He was starting this new company, some friends that he had worked with at Microwave, and there was a number of engineers, and I talked him into giving me a job researching horizontal and vertical markets. Sitting at my desk, I kept thinking how excited I was to be there working with this team. I'm listening to all these stories about how these guys sat in hacker rooms trying to figure out where the next security infiltrations were coming from because they had been in banking security. And I remember asking them, like, could you break into somebody's email if we wanted? They're like, totally, we could definitely do that. So we did it to my stepdad just so we could check it out and so I could see how to actually, get into somebody's thing, which I do not recommend. But my mind was actually blown. I was sitting there just mesmerized about all the problems that they were solving that hadn't been solved before. But anyways, back to this day, my first day at my desk, and I'm clicking around trying to figure out the last page that I was on when I got this pop-up that came up and said that I had performed an illegal operation and the computer was going to be shut down. I was immediately scared. I had no idea what I had done. I didn't know if my stepdad was going to be mad at me. I had no idea if the cops were going to be called. I remember talking to friends later on about how this happened to me, and I remember them making fun of me for that and telling me that maybe computers weren't meant for me. And I also remember thinking that I heard that you needed to be really good at math in order to be a good engineer, and I never really was. So fast forward to my early 30s. I'm a single mom. I'm working at a Pacific Source Health Plans, managing high-dollar pharmacy claims, but still never loving my job except the projects when I was working with the engineering and IT departments. I was constantly trying to ask them to show me what was behind those locked doors that nobody could get into. What were those machines? What were they doing? What was on them? And why couldn't I see them? Again, I never loved this job. I was lost. I was becoming more unhappy. I was becoming more negative in my life, and I knew that something had to change. I decided to change my narrative and the way that I thought about things. Instead of just another manic Monday, I chose just another magic Monday. When something happened that was negative, and I was like, why is this happening to me? I started thinking about, what is this situation trying to teach me? I was prepping to move to a new city. New mindset would be perfect as I, venture out. I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I noticed there's this growing, vibrant tech community there, and I wanted so bad to be a part of it. I remembered working with the engineers at my stepdad's office, and how much I loved, just hearing how they were solving all these problems, and remember just being mesmerized by the entire process. So I started to apply for interviews, and I applied to about 40 jobs, just sent in emails with my cover letter, my resume. I didn't get one interview, not one at all. My self-talk was extremely negative at this point. And I stopped to think about, how am I approaching trying to get this new job? Realizing that I actually was not utilizing my best skill set to do so. Sending in blanket emails was not trying to meet anybody in the community or at the company, not trying to get to know somebody, trying to learn more about that company. I needed to start working on that. So I volunteered at a conference called TechFest Northwest, where I met my very first mentor, who introduced me to my first startup. And after talking to Kara Swisher that day, she inspired me to take that leap and to quit this job and to go, take a chance. This job was only going to be 4 hours a week, and so it was going to be up to me to see if I can learn to grow from that. My very first day, the first week, I immediately felt at home. I was, again, like an only non-technical person I was hired as the office manager. I loved what I was doing. I loved what I was learning. I was always asking them, what it was that they were actually working on, what was behind those brackets, and why did they have words in there, some places and sentences that I could read, and sometimes why could I not read anything that they were typing. I stopped the meeting one time asking who Cassandra and Jason were. I thought they maybe were new hires and that maybe I hadn't got a computer for somebody. But what I did do is start to be able to figure out different problems because there was a ton to be able to figure out. They started teaching me a little bit of Python. I then, my next job, started working through updating our privacy and terms, using the GitHub online. So multiple startups and experience now lead me to Stackery. From the moment I got here, something was different. This team actually looked different than any other team that I've been on at a startup. I've typically been one of the only females until we got to about 15 people. The community only seemed to prove further what I was seeing at my new job. Opinions seemed to be welcomed. People seemed to be listening for understanding instead of listening to defend. Knowledge seemed to be freely shared without gatekeeping. So my very first serverless event was Serverless Conf in 2018. I decided I wanted to learn more about how serverless applications were built, and what better way than to join a hackathon. I was extremely nervous to join this hackathon and show up that day because I'd been previously been turned down because I didn't have technical experience, and they wanted, the team wanted to win. I stood outside the door that day for about 20 minutes, 15, 30 minutes, somewhere in there, with tears in my eyes, trying to get enough courage to walk through those doors. And I am so glad I did, because the second I did, I was immediately opened, welcomed with a smile, I was immediately put on the team. I helped to manage that project, did all the business plan, put together the PowerPoint presentation where everybody else built, and our team won the top prize that day. And every single one of us, worked together to make sure that happened. So after this hackathon, I began to wonder if I could actually do this now. Could I build something like in the cloud? Could I utilize these services that are out there that everybody's building on? Do I have any cron jobs that I could use some lambdas for? Could I actually get an app up and running? Maybe I could actually make this dream come true. If I don't need to understand networking, virtualization, load balancing, runtimes, application integration, middleware, hypervisor, and all the other things. Then I came across Ben's blog post about serverless being a mindset. It's a trait. It's something somebody could acquire. It's a state of mind. I read his blog posts over and over and over, working to understand what's my business value, what's my personal value. Serverless is not about how you make decisions. It's about your choices. I started to obsess about how this makes me feel. How do I make serverless decisions? And I realized that maybe I already was. Once a week, I am reviewing my goals to ensure that new information or opportunities are not shifting where I should be focusing the majority of my time. I am reflecting on my week, the week prior, and I'm always trying to find 2 things that I accomplished and 2 things that I need to improve on. And I'm looking for positive things because, again, that helps me to keep that narrative and that positive mindset going. You can say I'm tending to my own personal technical debt. I'm removing behaviors, focus areas that are not in line with helping me get to the next step. I'm rethinking, reallocating, re-architecting, and rethinking again. So I start to think, maybe if I have a serverless mindset, maybe I can take that a step further and have a little faith in myself, and let's try this. Maybe with AWS and tools like Stackery and all the like Lumigo and other ones out there that I could actually make this dream come true. So the ladies at my office began to teach me how to understand Git and to utilize those workflows. And then I move on to my very first Stackery tutorial. And I was actually able to get this up and actually for people that don't know, I should probably tell you, Stackery helps teams to speed up their delivery application development and lifecycle. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink here. Sorry. I have to tell you guys, I'm so nervous. You guys, this is such a great group, and it's been lovely, and the talks have been so phenomenal already. It's very hard to come up behind these wonderful thought leaders. But I was able to get this tutorial up and running. I was able to create my own unicorn wild ride app. I have a little bit of pep in my step now. I'm like, what else can I build? I wanted to provide something that had some business value or that would be useful to me. And so I decided that I wanted to run some marketing A/B tests. And so I went to look at how they had used this, a usage event fork trigger, and I copied the syntax, and I was able to deploy a third deploy function tag that actually sent out an email to customers of Stackery that had deployed 3 times, and it sent them a link to choose some swag from Stackery. This is awesome to me because it helps me to run tests without having to develop or helping to bug the engineers and get into their time. So I started to move on. I want to take on a bigger project. I want to automate some of my tasks. So through many trials and errors, I was able to generate this Google OAuth refresh token so I could interact with my Google Sheets and my email. I then created this webhook to listen and to post events, using it to listen to looking at my email, and it's looking for specific information, contact information, so I can build out these really robust contact lists. Because again, my job is in partnerships, and I need to be able to reach a broad group of people, and then understanding who's in what department makes that a lot easier. And I would say that this saved me about 4 hours a week of scanning emails and building these things myself. On to an even bigger project. I want to know if maybe I can help to start something from scratch. I asked a lady at my office named Danielle if she would be willing to work on this project with me, and she was actually going to design the project for us, and then we were going to build a language translation app. It's called Serverless.io. I want to share a few details about this project because it's something pretty close to my heart, because it's the first thing that that we built from scratch. So we built a base infrastructure in Stackery, in the Stackery's UI. So we have the S3 bucket, and then a Lambda function talking to another S3 bucket. Stackery generates all the necessary IAM permissions. It takes care of all the naming for me. And using the CLI, I can debug any failures. And let me tell you, there were a lot of them. I do not get excited anymore when I see review in progress, because most of these fail my first time around. And I'm actually realizing that this is a fundamental part of development that is universal, inclusive to newcomers and the old. It doesn't matter what technology that you're doing. It doesn't matter what language you're writing. You're Googling errors one by one. I used to think of application development as if a number of engineers that you're all collaborating together, you're writing chapters in a book, and most of that time was actually writing code. That is definitely not what it is. That was actually it was a huge realization for me, because you realize that you have to look, but the biggest thing, you can't just look at code and see where the error is. It's that failure message that you have to be able to read to understand, and understanding how to actually Google things and what terms you're Googling for makes things a lot simpler. If you want to contribute to this project, we did open source it. I was very nervous about this, again, because it's a very basic MVP, and there's still a lot of other work to do. But if you're so inclined, please go contribute at serverless.io. Celebrating success. I think it's so important to take time to celebrate these accomplishments. Again, as soon as you get something working, something else breaks again. And you don't ever feel like you got something working and now it's good. So I think it's important to take time to celebrate those champions. Last year was a completely invaluable year for me. I've had the opportunity to share my story all around the world. I was an AWS serverless hero, which I still can't say without laughing, just because I'm so humbled by this opportunity. It's up to us to take the information that's at our fingertips every single day to learn something new. I don't understand, like the Google Auth refresh token, I have no idea how hard or simple anything is when I go and try it. I just start to try it, look at new tutorials, and just try to build from there. I'm now working on building out my own website. I'm using a number of different AWS services and a couple of other development tools. Everything's working. I have the hello world up there, and I have my front end, and I'm just trying to figure out now what my CI/CD workflow should look like. And it turns out there's about 1,000 best ways to do it if you Google it on the internet. I can serverless. I can keep climbing this serverless ladder, focusing on what value I can provide to work, what value I can provide to myself, my personal professional goals, what value I can provide to my community, embracing this uncertainty and this change. But I'm focusing on the positive solutions, focusing on the positive things that are getting me to that next level. As humans, we have over 600,000 thoughts a day. It's important to remember what we're telling ourselves, focusing on what takes me to the next level, and making sure that I'm not becoming complicit in what's holding me back. AWS and the other cloud providers provide a number of building blocks for everything, for everybody to build on. All of you in this room know more about building these services than me. This new year is a good time to work to achieve not only the value that you're providing to your company, but the value that you're providing to yourself. I will leave you with this. You can do it. This office manager to director of operations to website builder and to the AWS serverless hero has achieved a number of things working with that serverless mindset. You can do it. Thank you.